Okay everyone, welcome back to the channel for another video on Gran Turismo 7. We're back with our first track guide under the new handling physics that got added on patch 1.13. So we are in Group 2 also for the first time, so it's a new experience on the game, and we are using the Mercedes CLK because this car is pretty much the only car that's worth using for the time trial and also the race, because it's really good on fuel, as well as its top speed is, I think, unmatched in Group 2. I don't think any of the other cars can compete with it. So yeah, if you do enjoy these videos, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. We're going to try and help make you as fast as possible in the time trial. Now, in the race conditions, you are going to have to do this a little bit different with fuel saving and stuff like that. But, you know, I might do a separate video for that. But for this, I want to just get you as fast as you can for time trial. So let's go straight in to the lap guide and give you some pointers to improve your overall lap. So first things first, try and get a good clean exit off the final corner. Really important to try and do that, just so that you get a clean run out of there. And you take as much speed up this straight as possible. So we're going to be looking for our first braking zone. So your first braking point is, as you turn it up into this corner, you're going to see, we're going to slow it down now. As you turn into this corner, you want to get your right hand tyre to skim the curb on the right. And that curb, as you go through it, is going to straighten up. As soon as it starts straightening up, it's pretty much when you're going to go on the brakes. At that arrow, see where the straight line is there? As soon as we hit basically where that arrow is, we're going to get on the brakes and get the car braking in a straight line to slow it down as quick as possible. So downshifting through the gears and into second gear, and we're going to start turning in nice and early. Now you're going to aim to take a little bit of the curb off on the left hand side. Try not to take too much, because you can get a penalty, but you can actually take quite a bit. So you want to try and get through this chicane in a straight line as possible and taking as much curb off as possible while getting on the throttle as early as possible. So again, on the exit there, using the curb and accelerator now, and again, use some of the exit curb if you need to. You can get away with it, you won't get a penalty as long as you don't go too far wide, and then work your way down into this next section, which again, you're going to look for keeping the car to the right hand side. And basically, as soon as the car's straightened up, you're going to be getting on the brakes again. So as soon as that car's straightened up, onto the brakes nice and early, and you're going to try and keep the trail braking all the way through the corner here. So you can see trail braking, trail braking, trail braking to keep the car into the apex. Then once we've got the car in the apex, we're off the brakes, and you want to try and keep this car all the way as close as possible to this curb on the left hand side until you feel the grips there. Then you're going to accelerate, and you're going to go obviously up to fourth gear just as you approach the next apex. And again, through here, you want to keep the car to the right hand curb, upshift to fourth just as you go in near the curb on the right hand side, and use the full width of the track on the exit there. Be careful not to run too far wide, you can easily hit the barrier. Now into this really fast right hand corner, you're going to just dab the brakes. Now I do this by a visual reference. I don't really have a reference on the track, I just do it by a visual guide. And you see, as you come through, you can really take quite a lot off this corner. You can actually cut the corner a fair bit. So attack the corner and try and get as much exit speed as possible. Be careful not to run too far wide. Make sure your left hand tyre gets back on the track by the end of the curb, because if you run wide enough that it doesn't do that, you're very likely going to get a penalty. So that is what you always want to aim to do on that right hand corner there. Now we're going to accelerate up the straight, obviously fast forward the action because we don't really need to watch too much of that, and into the next braking zone. We're looking for the 100 board on the left hand side, and you can see I'm braking just before that 100 board. You can brake it a little bit closer than what I do here, but I'm braking nice and early to try and get the car rotated into this right hand corner. So you're going to see we're going to again take some of the curb off on the right, down to third gear, then down to second gear as we approach the curb, and use some of that curb on the right, and a little dab of the brakes again just as you come off the curb to rotate the car back into the next left hand part of the corner. So again, dab of the brakes, accelerate out the corner in second gear, upshift to third gear, and again you can actually go over the white line a little bit here and use some of the curb on the right side. So you're going to see I do it, but just be careful not to do it too much, because you can again pick up a penalty if you're overly aggressive with doing that. But the more you cut off that, the better your exit speed will be down this straight. So now we're going to be looking for our next braking zone, which again we use a 100 board. Either the left or right one, whatever one you want to use. I use the right one because obviously you're on the right hand side of the track, and we're going to brake just before that. Again, trail brake into the corner, and again you can really attack the curb on this part and in the middle of the corner. So use second gear, get the car rotated, left hand tyre onto the curb, and you will see as you come out the corner, you're going to get back on the brakes ever so slightly again to rotate the car. That's going to get the rotation on the car, and you're going to attack this next corner. Again, try and get the right hand tyre onto the curb, and then on the throttle as early as you can. You can see I early upshift to third gear there for stability, and it kind of, I think I could have been a bit more aggressive, but yeah, it works in terms of getting the speed off the exit and then working your way now up this next straight and into the next braking zone, which we're going to hit there. You can see we're going to look for, again, pretty much as soon as we see that yellow bit of barrier on the left hand side, we're pretty much using that as our brake reference. So as soon as the car is level with that, onto the brakes nice and heavy. And again, we're going to be very aggressive on the brakes here because this is a heavy braking zone. Keep the car as straight as possible. You can see I'm not turning in yet. And then once you're approaching the corner, you're going to start turning in because, again, you want to get that right-hand tyre as close to the curb, if not on the curb. You can see I get right up on the curb, maybe a little bit too much on the curb on this lap. Like I say, this lap wasn't perfect, but yeah, it'll do as a guide and a reference. So on the power as early as you can, be careful not to go too far to the left there or put the power down on the curb because you can spin it if you do that. And working your way down this long straight and then into the next right-hand corner, which is pretty much flat out until you hit the apex. So as the car approaches the apex, you're going to see we're going to get on the brakes just as it skims the apex corner. So just there, just before it's onto the curb, we're going to get onto the brakes and start getting the car rotating to the right hand side. So a little bit of braking, keeping the car to the right hand side and down into second gear. Now at this point here, we're going to try and turn in quite a wide angle to get as much exit speed from the corner as possible. So down to second gear, but we're going to go up to third gear as we power out the corner. So again, keeping your left hand tyre as close to the curb on the left as possible. And then as we accelerate out, early shift into third gear on the exit there, use the curb, and then working your way into the next braking zone, which again, 50 board on the left hand side, braking just short of that. You see it there, 50 board, and we're braking just short of the 50 board to try and help get the car slowed down before this next right hand 90 degrees right hand corner. So again, with it being a 90 degrees right hand corner, you want to try and square it off as much as possible and carry the speed through the corner. So you see into the apex and then on the throttle very early in these Group 2 cars, on the throttle, maximum throttle on the exit, and powering your way on this straight all the way into the next braking zone. So again, fast forwarding into this really fast section of track. So this isn't almost completely flat out, but you will, just as you approach the little bit of green tarmac on the left there, you're going to give it a little bit of braking input, as you see there, just to try and get the car rotating into this right hand corner. We're going to stay in fifth gear for this right hand corner, and we're going to slow down to around 140, 138, something like that as we go into the apex and power our way through the corner. Again, keep as much speed as possible. We're going to give it a little bit of a safety lift as we go into this next part of the corner. That's going to help rotate the car into this really fast left-hand corner. And again, as we floor the car all the way through here, we're going to again give it a little bit of braking input as we approach the next left-hand corner with a little bit of a lift off the throttle at the same time. Again, what this is going to do is going to move the weight transfer to the front, help the car keep the balance so that it's gripping on the front end. And we're going to do the same for this right-hand corner. Again, a little bit of braking input on there, again, to get that rotation in. And we're going to be playing with that brake as much as possible all the way through the corner just to try and get that rotation all the way through this very long right hand corner. Once the car's back over to the right hand side, pretty much in a straight line, you can see as we're going in a straight line onto the brakes for this next left hand corner, and you want to try and take as much of this apex off as possible. So getting your left hand tyre as close to the curb on the left as you can, it will really help with rotation. Get on the throttle a little bit earlier and you carry that a little bit of extra speed off the exit. Just be careful you don't run too far wide there, because again, you can get a penalty on that corner. Now into the next braking zone, we're going to be braking just before, pretty much in the middle of the pit entry there on the dotted white line, but before the curb on the right hand side. Braking quite aggressively, and again, you can actually use some of the curb to widen the line in on the right hand side and attack the curb on the left as we go through here. So again, as we see from here, you're going to try and take as straight line as you can while obviously attacking it. So over the left hand side, swinging it back into the right, coming off the brake and as coming off the accelerator at this point, because we're going to go onto the brake as we hit the curb, and then back onto the accelerator, and you see back on the brakes. And what we're going to do at the same point as we're going back on the brakes, we're going to go downshift to second gear, because that's going to get the rotation on the car, and that means we can square the car off for this left-hander and then get it squared off for the final corner. So again, attack this curb as much as you can. Be careful again for the penalties, and on the right hand side you can get quite aggressive on the curves and power your way over the line for 1 minute 33.3. Now this wasn't a perfect lap. You can see we improved by 7 tenths on our previous lap, but what I'd say is it should be good enough for a guide to help you improve. I think we can get that down to a low 32. I think we can take another second off that, but I think for a track guide it should help you out. So again, we'll watch this lap from chase camera. You can see again how much of the corners we're taking off. Just be careful. You'll see on that part I don't take too much off, because you can pick up a penalty on the second part of the chicane. That's where you can pick up a penalty quite easily. And through here you're going to see that again, chucking the car in and keeping it close to the curb. Very important to keep these cars close to the curb and power your way out in fourth gear, using all the track. And you've got to use as much track that's available, especially for some of these faster corners, because if you take a couple of inches extra on the left hand side, that's going to equate to a couple of miles per hour extra from exit speed, because you've took that little bit extra into the corner. So into the braking zone again, you can see really attacking the curbs on the first part, again on the second part on the curb, and again on the third part. But again, be careful you don't take too much on them corners, because if you do, it's very easy to pick up a track limit penalty on this track, and sometimes it is a little bit random. So when you're doing the time trial here, you can easily on this corner there, where I was quite aggressive on the curb, sometimes if you do that, it feels like you've done the exact same thing and you will pick up a penalty. So just be cautious. It will happen sometimes, but if you want to get the maximum out of the lap, you really have to exploit this track as much as possible. So into this next right hand corner, again onto the curb, on the throttle nice and early, and now powering our way down this straight into the really fast right hand corner, which again, like we said before, as you're approaching the corner, you're going to see we're onto the brakes ever so briefly, and then slowing the car down, making sure you don't brake too late for that corner, because if you brake too late, you're going to be in that sand gravel trap and it's going to lose you loads of time. So again, this corner pretty tricky, especially trying to get the power down when you've got slightly worn tyres. Be careful in the race on that corner, because you can quite easily lose the rear end. But through here, it's almost a flat out corner, but you've just got to brake a little bit. But in Group 1 it would be pretty much flat out, but in these you do need to slow down a little bit more in Group 2 cars. And through this really fast flowing corners, just make sure you don't go too deep into this corner. You want to try and keep the car to the right hand side, because you're then rotating it into this left hand corner. And then you've just got the last few corners pretty much on the lap, which again, you don't want to mess this lap up. When you're on a decent lap, you want to make sure you do this pretty solid. Don't, depending on how hard you're pushing the time trial, you can see aggressive on the curves, but making sure that downshift, you can really rotate the car with downshifting. So make sure you bear that in mind as you come into the chicane. Downshifting the car will help rotate the car into the corner and should get a pretty good lap. If you follow the basic tips that we've given this video, I'm confident you can improve your lap by up to a second or more, because it's a very long track. So you will find a lot of pace with, just practicing, braking at the right point, getting the car rotated into these corners. But yeah, if you do enjoy these videos, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. I'll be back with more videos and streams very soon. Thanks again for watching, everyone.